Hi, everybody. This is Susan Julia talking about the missing ingredient in your business. Um, and this week we are talking about or continuing the conversation around the power of an integrated system. So, again, moving away from the siloed working where within even quite a small provider, it's very easy to have three, four, five different tech systems that you're using to run the whole learner journey.
And in some ways, that's okay, but only if you're using the data properly from all of them in an integrated way. So, for example, we know that there's some software out there for Send, for example. Now, you're not going to have your own build your own system on Send diagnosis when you've got experts in the market that haven't got a perfectly good system that you can buy a license for, right? So that doesn't make sense. But what is not happening, or what we see that doesn't happen well in a lot of places, is that how does that data then integrated into the learner dashboard to make sure that um, those outcomes and those action points are then integrated into how we manage the learner journey well. So you can have your different things. Personally, I prefer a tech solution like we had it back in the day where we did have our own bespoke built system, which was an absolute dream to work with, made life really, really easy as an operations director because everything was captured in the one place and you could pull off pretty much the data of the gods to manage contract well.
You saying that there's something about 120 columns of data per learner?
Still dream of it.
So um, one of the key things that a lot of providers who are using external systems have not yet cracked. And again, it comes back to this lack of IT confidence in that we're training professionals, we run training companies, we're not tech professionals.
Yeah.
Um, you can take advice from IT people about what they would recommend from a technical perspective, but that doesn't solve the problem of what's the right thing to help your staff run the business best. And this is this missing ingredient that we've been talking about and that we're increasingly working with providers on helping fill that skills and knowledge gap. The big thing is how you can get good data out. And the key thing for a lot of providers is a lack of document management. We talked about it in our last one around, particularly around compliance. You know, you have to have an ILR, you have to have an ILP, you have to do reviews, you have to do this. Going back to the send bit, if I want to claim additional learning needs money, I have to have done an assessment.
Yeah.
If I want to do additional social needs money, I have to have an assessment, I have to have a plan, I have to do reviews, I have to be able to demonstrate additionality. And a lot of the reason why a lot of providers don't claim that money is because they don't have the data systems in place in order to be able to manage that.
And
Um,
to manage it confidently.
yes.
Yes.
And that is all document management. It's
Yeah.
understanding, yes, I have to have one of these, but what are the interesting bits out of this? So we, again, used to have a reporting system that said, yeah, I've got completed ILPs. Brilliant. Every ILP's got a signature for an employer and a learner. Great, because I'm interested in counting those. What's the date that they were signed? Because I'm
Yes.
interested in that date. That date is an exciting date. Now, if we're talking about somebody starting into learning, what was the date of the first item of learning activity? Now, part of that is how we plan our training, and part of that is being able to evidence the delivery of that plan. So if I've got a session plan, great. If I've got a register, great. If we've marked some work, if we've given some feedback, if we've had a review, all of these different things, we need to document that we've done them. We need to be able to count them. We need to be able to sort them. And we need to know what the date was. And if they haven't got a signature and they need to have a signature, we need to know that we need to chase a signature.
Yeah.
And what we're looking at is being able to have this reporting across all these different touch points so that somebody like you or somebody like me, the CEO or the ops director, can look and go, we've got an issue here. So when you're going into audit or inspection or just running your business properly, you know what's going to bite you on the backside.
Yeah, but also, it enables you to look at the delivery against your different contracts, right? Well, because you might have a super duper team up in, I don't know, Newcastle.
I'm
Um,
sure the people in Newcastle are marvellous.
I'm sure they're fantastic. So I
Yes,
am.
they are.
You have a team up in Newcastle that has got its stuff together, but it's
Yep.
working in one data system that contract has asked them to use. They're doing paper all over the place because they're doing the paper-based ILR, paper-based ILP, because that is the culture of the business up there. But all of it's great. Like if you went to check it, there's 100% compliance for contract. The quality of what's going on is good quality. But how do you know? Firstly. And secondly, you might have a contract down in Dorset, which is, not doing as well as Newcastle,
Struggling.
struggling with the compliance elements of the contract. And how do you benchmark what good looks like if there's a filing cabinet in Dorset and there's a filing cabinet in Newcastle and two different funding systems from two different devolved authorities? It makes it impossible for senior leaders to be able to give that strategic overview about the risk to the business of contracts and financial assurance. Thank you.
Yeah.
Word for a
For
second.
a lot of providers that we work with, they're pretty good at recording a lot of the funding related stuff electronically.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah.
Lots of providers, particularly within the apps and the longer qualification sector, are all over using e-portfolios
Yeah,
and the
absolutely.
integrated learner management
Yeah.
systems. Where you see a lot of the paper-based stuff is within employability, where we're doing very short and sharp, where from a classroom management and learner management perspective, there is still a really strong rational case for pens and paper in the classroom, workbook, old school. There is still an argument for that. What you may not see as a leader is the hours and hours and hours that those tutors are spending scanning those workbooks in. And this again comes back down to this IT confidence, being all over it, really understanding every part of the learner journey and how that impacts. You're paying qualified, experienced, expensive tutor assessors a lot of money to stand in front of a photocopier for several hours, scanning in book after book after book.
And
If you
normally, and normally into a system or into a folder in a system or into SharePoint or whatever, but you can't actually pull any of it off for data purposes.
no,
All you can do is have a look and see if somebody submitted their work. That's it. You can't.
or you're scanning that workbook into an e-portfolio system in order to then have electronic IQA.
Yeah.
But of course, the workbook gets scanned in when the tutor has the time and the technology is available to scan it in. If you're a tutor that's doing 5 different classes a week, you may have a week where you don't manage to scan any of that in. And then suddenly we're into the next month and we've got no assessment and achievement because we've got this kind of black hole.
And
And
also,
this is what we mean about this lack of joined up
yeah,
thinking. It's not just between ops and finance, it's also within ops. What you often find is the assessment and the IQA activity in a lot of providers is kind of to one side. And a lot of people in the business don't really understand it. It's scary. And something we're required to do by that awarding body thing. And we don't really like them.
yes. And also, though, just on a side note, if you're looking at how do you do this electronically going forward and delivering good learning within an electronic context for whatever you're doing in terms of employability, and just as an aside, the digital confidence stuff that you sometimes don't feel and therefore shy away from will actually improve with your learners and customers as well. And that's a really big thing in the 21st century. We know that a lot of employability customers and lower skilled ASF customers have low digital confidence, right?
But
And
it's also really easy for us to make an assumption around how learners won't cope with that digital transformation. We had it a decade ago
yeah,
where we had enormous arguments around how we couldn't expect um, adult skills budget people who were a long way from the workforce, first generation immigrants within East London and South London. We couldn't possibly expect them to bring their own tech into the classroom. We couldn't possibly expect them to be uploading stuff directly. We can't do this, we can't do that, we can't do the other. Turns out we were fine.
absolutely.
Because if you don't ask, you don't get.
And also, there is a thing around where there was digital poverty, we were able to put strategies in place to support those learners. So if people did have issues with accessing data because of financial constraints and things like that, we'd support them with dongles and stuff for their work. So there's always ways to do it. I mean, I know dongles are probably not really in fashion anymore, and I think it's a bit of an old
But
tech.
that digital transformation as well was pre-COVID.
Yes, absolutely.
What we all discovered going through COVID is actually you can be way more digital than you were previously confident with. What's interesting actually is a lot of that digitality, if that's even a word, it's kind of gone backwards a little bit because we as businesses were uncomfortable due to our own lack of IT confidence. Our discomfort has meant that we've gone back into our comfort zone rather than necessarily pushing forward with ever more exciting ways of
Absolutely.
running our business
Absolutely. Yeah,
better.
absolutely. And I think as well, with that, there is that thing about, today where people will be delivering ASF courses online. So, I mean, like the classrooms will be online, so we'll be accessing the extra classes. But then the written work should be submitted on a Word document, you know, rather than up being, something that's delivered directly into whatever that, workbook
Or
or whatever.
you have the thing, and we used to have it loads of rather than learners uploading it directly within to the portfolio, the tutors just go, email it to me,
Yes.
email it to me, email it to me. Well, all you're doing is, yes, on the surface, the tutor is being nicer to the learner. But actually, what you're doing is the tutor is creating a blockage that didn't need to exist because now we're waiting for the tutor to upload that work. Well, that's just tedious and dull and boring, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's a non-work activity that didn't need to exist. And again, we're reducing those learners' digital skills.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is around the mentality we have towards our staff. And again, that's back to this missing ingredient
Yeah.
of really understanding what's going on, how are people working, where are people not doing what they're supposed to be doing because they're using their initiative for the best of reasons,
Yeah.
but actually, in using their initiative and being lovely to the learner, all they're doing is then creating work that didn't need to be created. And these will be the same people who are struggling to hit the targets, who are constantly talking about how they're so overworked, so overwhelmed. But actually, it's because they're working inefficiently.
Yeah.
So again, if you guys are suffering from any of those issues, we would love to have a chat and help you with them as part of our campaign to help you with your missing ingredient and get you running your skills and employability businesses brilliantly.
And I
Thank
want
you
to
very
say,
much.
and reinforce before Julia stops recording and turns me off, this is not just about an exercise in tech for tech's sake.
No.
All the things we talk about every week, and I will say this every week. This is about productivity, efficiency savings, profitability increases, and loving the EBITDA at the end of it. Because all of this is about helping you grow and grow well in a really profitable and sustainable way.